welcome into the Hoist The Colours podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Igoe. Excited for this edition of the HTC pod. We've got another East Carolina head coach joining us. Earlier in the week, we talked to baseball coach Cliff Godwin. We previewed the upcoming 2023 baseball season. Well, now we shift our attention back to football, as we often do on this podcast, but instead of me talking about it, answering you guys' questions, well, we got the head man, Mike Houston, heading into his 5th season at East Carolina. He joined the podcast. I talked to him earlier today on Thursday afternoon in his office for about 45 minutes. We chatted about a little bit of everything, big picture college football, NIL, how East Carolina can continue to grow in that front, what he's hearing from his peers about it across the industry. We took a look back at the 2022 ECU football season. I really wanted to take the time as much as possible to dive into some of the big sticking points from this past season, because I feel like sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle, so to speak, what was accomplished individually as a team. As you look at just the state of college football, it's hard to look back anymore. Everything is just forward thinking, and obviously for good reason, because you don't have much time to waste. But I did want to focus back on the 2022 season with Coach Houston. We didn't have a ton of time after the bowl in our post-game press conference, so I wanted to touch on some highlights there. And then, of course, we took an in-depth look into the future, transfer portal, the additions that have already been made. We went position by position, talked about several guys, and honestly went a little bit longer than anticipated. Coach Houston's always gracious with his time. They're about to hit the road recruiting. We worked hard to get this interview in this month, so we didn't have to wait until maybe February when recruiting slowed down a little bit. So really appreciate, first off, Coach Houston taking the time out of his day and really setting aside a full hour to do the podcast, as he is pretty much booked up every other day, every other hour, for the most part. So I appreciate his time, and let's get to it. Let's take a quick break, get some ads in, and then on the other side we will have our conversation with Coach Houston, where we dive into a little bit of everything on the Hoist the Colours podcast. All right, I'm joined now by East Carolina head coach Mike Houston. We have put a bow on the 2022 season, and everybody across college football already in full force looking ahead to 2023. But, Coach, I do want to look back at 2022 before we dive too forward. But just first off, thanks for taking some time to join the Hoist the Colours podcast. I know you guys are pretty busy these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's this is the craziest kind of end of the year, beginning of the year transition that I've ever been through, and it's across the country. Everybody's in the same situation. We talked about it at the convention a few days ago, but it's just with the portal windows and the transfers. It is really just a lot of guys in and out, and a lot of things going on. So it's a little bit of a different time right now, and but it's one that really excited about. Had our first team meeting of the year earlier today, and I'm excited about spring practice. I'm excited about this group, and can't wait to kind of flip the page from 2022 to 2023.
When you got into this business, obviously, you enjoy coaching, developing young men, that sort of stuff. How much, has it changed from your position as a head coach, just having to manage it all versus how much you enjoy, the coaching aspect of it? Like, what is that balance like, and is that at all frustrating at times?
Well, it's obviously a lot different animal now than it was, over a decade ago when I started as a head coach at the collegiate level. And, whether I agree with the direction that, our sport is headed or not, you have to evolve and you have to adapt. And, that is one of the frustrating things is, you spend so much time on other stuff that it's, you don't quite get the hands-on coach as much as you did, say even 5 years ago. So, but it's the direction that the NCAA Division I FBS football is going across the country, and so we're trying to make sure that we are evolving and adapting along with everything, so that we can set East Carolina University up to be highly successful in the future.
You guys just returned from the coaches convention earlier this week, and as you talked to some of your peers in the industry, just what was the overall consensus of, I guess all of this, the portal, NIL, like, is anyone in favor of it to a certain degree, or is it something that needs to be kind of looked at from the top down?
Well, I think the general consensus is there has to be some rules. Right now it's like there are no rules anymore, and there is no accountability. I just think that you gotta figure out whether it's the NCAA or if it's some other governing body. You have to have somebody that has, the forward-thinking ability to establish some guidelines and some protocols to say, okay, you can do this, you can't do that, but also to enforce it. Whatever rules we have right now, nobody's enforcing them, and I think that's the consensus that I got from coaches nationally, is just the desire to have guidelines and somebody enforce the rules. And so I think we all understand that name and image likeness, the theory and the thought behind it is very, very good. But what is going on right now is not what it was intended to be. It was intended to be something to benefit the student athletes, and it's turned into all the things that got SMU the death penalty back in the 80s. And so I just think that there's got to be somebody, some type of governing body, some type of group that can give us all some guidelines for operation, and then ensure everybody is, for the most part, following those guidelines.
How much or how many issues have you guys run into recruiting-wise where y'all feel like y'all are maybe good with a transfer or a player, and all of a sudden maybe you hear about an NIL story at another school and that player picks that other school? Like, how frustrating is that? Because you guys, I'm sure, are doing things by the book, but other schools may be taking advantage of the situation we just talked about.
Well, I mean, I've had a couple just ask me, and I just said, listen, we're not doing that. I mean, I want to make sure we take care of our current players first, before we get involved in that. And it's not supposed to be used as a recruiting enticement, but people are, and that's what I mean is there's certain things you're supposed to be doing or not doing. There's not supposed to be any tampering. There's not supposed to be enticement, but there is, and there's no enforcement or accountability. So the big thing we want is, and this is what I've told the coaching staff, it's what I shared with. I want people that want to be at East Carolina University. We want young men that we enjoy coaching, that our players enjoy being teammates with, and then we want kids that are driven to be great. And we're going to find those guys, and we're going to work together, and that's the way we're going to approach it. If somebody all they're interested in is money or whatever, then that's probably not going to fit or work around here. I do want our donors, the collective. I want them to support our student athletes that are here at East Carolina, and we have to do that for our student athletes. It's the schools at our level are doing that. We do have some donors that have stood up and said, yes, we support this, and so we want to address name and image likeness from that aspect of allowing our student athletes to be able to take advantage of that and to benefit from that here at East Carolina.
I do want to talk about the 2022 season and also look ahead to 23, but while we're on the topic, I do think it is important for fans listening to understand that, like you said, teams in the American, SMU, UTSA coming in, those teams, their donor base, they have heavily invested in NIL, and that is something that you guys, as you look to compete for conference championships, I think ECU fans need to understand that. Just from your vantage point, how important is it to reward players, whether it be through that or other means, but also find a way to build that collective to the standpoint of it's competitive on the American Athletic Conference scale. Right.
I mean, the teams we are playing are aggressively moving forward with this. Whether it's Memphis, Tulane is significantly, they're heavy in the NIL realm. Rice, UTSA, UAB, SMU, whomever it is. I mean, the teams in our conference, they are heavily involved in this, and we all want and expect East Carolina to be at the top of the league. And so if we do want that, then we've got to be at the top of the league in all the areas and categories that matter. And this is certainly one that matters.
Back-to-back winning seasons for you guys at East Carolina, capped off with a bowl victory. I don't know how much time any of us got to enjoy it, but a big way to wrap up 2022. And looking back at the last few years, clear signs of the program continuing to trend upward. Based on wins and losses, competitiveness, that sort of things. Just how happy were you when you look back on the 2022 season as a whole?
I think when you step back from it, I think the bowl win was the perfect way to end the season. Not only winning the bowl game, but winning it the way our team did, and doing so in dominant fashion, in a very physical, performance. I think is the perfect way to end 2022, and it's the perfect way for so many of those seniors to finish their careers here. And as you look back at the season, I know that when I sat here this time last year and I looked at our schedule and I looked at the teams that we were getting ready to face, I knew that it was going to be a very, very challenging schedule. And I told our players at the beginning of the fall, there's not a game on our schedule that we can't win, and there's probably not a game on our schedule that we can't lose. It's going to be tight games week in and week out. And as you sit here on this side of it with an 8-win season, you have to be happy about that. There will be people that will say this or that or the other, but I can promise you this: nobody hurts over the close losses more than the players and the coaches. And that's this season was probably as challenging mentally for me as any season I've had, because you had such massive swings in emotion with some exhilarating wins, 4 overtimes against Memphis, and huge win over Central Florida. Huge bowl win, and then you had some excruciating losses, whether it's double overtime against Navy, NC State in the opener, or Cincinnati up in Cincinnati. Our kids put us in a situation where week in and week out, we had chances to win each week, and so excited about the 8-win season. Yes, could you have been 1 or 2 kicks away from 11 wins and playing on New Year's Day? Yeah, you could have been. And then again, some of the other ones could have went the other way as well. So I just think overall, it's a solid season, and one that I'm very proud of the players for. And then you put that to bed and move on to 2023.
A lot of guys moving on from the program, whether it be graduation or declaring for the draft. We'll kind of touch on some of those, but clearly Holt Naylor's chief among those. 5-year career, did it the right way. Maybe could have gone elsewhere, but decided to finish up and came into a tough situation before you got here, and kind of leaves the program in much better shape than he found it. Just, I know you've gotten emotional talking about him before, but just seeing him go out the way he did, how much did that mean to you?
Well, could there have been a better storybook ending than the Birmingham Bowl and the senior season he had? It's. He came back, a year ago and some change. He told me he was coming back, and he came back for a certain reason, and he had a fantastic year statistically. He had a great year from a leadership standpoint, and then just to finish it with the performance he had in the bowl game, MVP of the bowl game, record-setting performance. It's a storybook ending to a great career, and I told he and his dad after the game that that win and this season, 10 years from now, when he comes back, he is a guy that's up there with some of the all-time greats in ECU football history, and he'll be revered by the fan base for forever. And so it's a name that you'll mention with the other greats. And so just very proud of him, excited for him, excited for what's next with him. And so I can't wait to see how the Hula Bowl goes, and can't wait to see how Pro Day and where he ends up. But certainly a great ending to a very, very good career.
Keaton Mitchell and C.J. Johnson, both with outstanding years as well. Keaton just, I think, over 1,400 yards, just a phenomenal year. He decides to turn pro as the C.J. Kind of take us through what those conversations was like. We all kind of realized it was a possibility with both of them. But what were those conversations like, and then maybe how tough it is to see them leave?
Well, one, when you start having those conversations, what I try to do is I try to provide as much education, as much accurate information from NFL scouts, personnel departments, whomever, for the player regarding their situation, and then just let them weigh it. But in my talks with both of them, just excited for them. I told several scouts I could not give a higher character reference than what I would give Keaton Mitchell. Just the way he operated on a daily basis around here. Our fans saw the great performance on game days, but to me, equally as impressive is just the young man that Keaton is and the way he conducts his life and goes about his business. And so, excited for both of them. I think it's, for both of them, it's the right decision for them. I'd love to have him back for another year. Who wouldn't? I would love to have seen Keaton, break the all-time rushing record. And he, probably would have done that next year. But leaves here after playing two and a half, almost 3 seasons. And, what a great career. And so excited for them. Can't wait to see where they end up. They'll both get a chance. And so then I've talked to both of them just about, all right, when you get your chance, you shoot your shot, go do it, and just make sure you're prepared for this and prepared for that. And I'm going to continue to support them however I can. I think they both have made wise choices with agents, and so they're in their preparations right now for the combine and pro day, and look forward to watching them as they get their opportunities.
When you look at guys who came in as kind of one-year transfers like Isaiah Winstead, Justin Redd, Chandre Mims, and Chance Bates, to me, the way they performed would seem to suggest that can be something y'all can sell to future similar recruits. They all came in, had a huge impact. They fit in well with the culture. As you took all those guys, did you see it working out that well? And then how much can y'all maybe use that as a recruiting pitch going forward?
Well, I think you have to say that it went pretty well.
Yeah.
Are there growing pains with, taking a transfer that's only going to be here for 1 year? Yes. It's you got to try to get to know them as quickly as you can and try to get some depth to your relationship with them. But I think it definitely is something that benefited our program, and definitely benefited those players. I think that all 4 of them certainly took advantage of their opportunity and made the most of it. And all 4 came here for a specific reason, and I think all 4 would tell you in leaving here that they achieved what they set out to do. And so I think that's something that as you look at it, we don't want to live in the portal. We're going to sign. We've signed a large class of high school kids already. We're continuing to recruit, and we'll continue to sign a few more high school student athletes. So we want to major in high school players, but in today's college landscape, you have to be active and be productive in the transfer portal in order to maximize your opportunities each year.
Looking back at last season for the kind of the final summation, we'll start first with the offense. And first time in program history, you guys have a 3,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard rusher, 2 1,000-yard receivers. I think top 30, top 40 at least in multiple offensive categories. And I don't know, for whatever reason, ECU fans love to give Donnie Kirkpatrick a hard time, but he's well tenured here. Maybe it has something to do with it. They all know his name. But just how happy are you with the state of the offense right now and kind of where things are heading there?
Well, statistically, one of the best offensive seasons in school history and program history. And so you have to be excited about it. And it's especially finishing the way we did. Those last 2 games, you can't. 50 points in back-to-back games to finish the year. So that's pretty good offensive output. Donnie's done a great job here. He does a great job collaborating with the other offensive coaches. I think you can look at Holton's career, and he improved every single year. So obviously he's doing a good job in that room. But it's one of those things where you look at what you have and you put the pieces together, and I sit here and I watch each week the work that's done, and you couldn't be more excited about just the dedication and the game planning each week. And did it always work out for a win for the Pirates? No, but we were one of the better offenses in the country throughout the year, and that kind of production, you hope you have that again next year.
Defensively, Blake Harrell's unit really, really good again stopping the run, and maybe as good as you guys have been. And it seemed like to me, like as the season progressed, teams were just like, all right, they can stop the run, let's just throw it every down. And teams had success through the air against you guys at times on the back end. So defensively, kind of your thoughts on the season, and maybe what you guys want to clean up on the back end, or whether it be pass rush or pass coverage with those things.
Well, I think with that side of the ball, I think there's a lot of positives, and there's some things we need to do better. I think we had some great performances against really, really good offenses. You look at the quarterbacks we faced. It's the real hit list now. I think 8 of them are some of the top quarterbacks in the country, and so you faced a potent schedule from an offensive output situation there. So I think that you had some great performances throughout the year. And then, some things that we obviously have to improve on. I think that continuing to, do a better job with, being able to pressure the quarterback, part of that obviously is something we need to look at with scheme. Some of that could be that we need to, make sure that we have better personnel when it comes to pass rush. I think that, at times we did a real good job in the secondary. At times, we got, we need to play better. And so I think that, just taking a good look at everything this off season, evolving, continuing to look at ways that we can do a better job, continuing to do a better job developing our players. So I would say that, you had, a lot of positives on that side of the ball and some things we need to clean up.
Special teams wise, everybody knows the kicking situation, and especially early in the year that it cost you guys some games. I thought maybe that overshadowed how good you were, guys, or how good you guys were at coverage. I know the one at Cincinnati got away, but really, if you look at it, y'all covered the kick well. The tackle just wasn't made. Maybe a miss blocking the back. But as you look at that side of the ball, is it personnel that you look at evaluating as far as the kicking game? And I don't know how much you evaluate the holding and snapping, but as you look at that situation, what did you kind of make of what happened in 22? Well,
I think that situation, you have a lot of things that we did really, really well and a few things that you didn't do well. It's sometimes people choose just to focus on the negative, so let's talk about some of the positives first. I think kickoff return, we were significantly improved. Not only did we, return one for a touchdown, you had a lot of really, substantial returns, especially the latter half of the year. So I think that you really improved drastically with your kickoff return team. I think outside of the one kick against Cincinnati, your kickoff coverage unit did a great job throughout the year. And I think, again, late in the season, we improved a good bit, with that unit. So I think those two right there, really had solid years. Punt unit, you got two punts on the year that you got to do a better job with, and certainly we got to look at everything, with that unit. In the off season, we need better performance from the guys on the unit, but we also, I think, you got to take a look at how can you do a better job from a coaching standpoint also. I think punt return, a little bit the same way. I think Malik has shown himself to be a solid punt return guy. I think we've got to look at ways we can do a better job, with him. And also I want to see us get back to being more aggressive from a punt rush standpoint. We have been, we've blocked some punts in the past, and didn't really threaten to do that this year. And so I think it's just a look at, just being better with that unit. You had a returning first-team all-conference kicker. I don't think anybody anticipated Owen struggling the way he did. early in the year. I think that Andrew did a good job when he took over mid-season, and certainly hit some big kicks down the stretch. But that's a situation right there where you're going to have competition this spring. You'll have competition at all three specialist positions, whether it's snapper, holder, or kicker. You'll have competition this spring with that. Josh Murphy, who was going to be our starting holder last year, he's back from injury. So, he and Luke and David they'll compete this spring for the holding job. You'll have, multiple guys competing for the kickoff or the place kicking job. Lath Margin took over late in the year with the kickoff role, so you'll see competition there. So I think the biggest thing we got to do is just have true competition and improve with our specialists.
Looking at next year, and you've kind of already said that at least Mason Garcia will go into the offseason as the presumed starter, and of course he'll have to earn it like anybody will each day in practice. But what has given you the confidence to make that statement with Mason thus far?
Standing out there on the practice field, watching him every day, seeing his improvement, seeing his growth. It's the great thing about the bowl practices is, you got that extra time with him. And I really thought he came along and really thought he played well throughout those bowl practices. Everybody, why didn't he play more? Why didn't he play well? That's the one position where it's difficult to rotate guys. It's just it's easy to sit up in the sands and say you should, but when the ball game's down there and you got your quarterback that's your starter and it's playing at a high level and the game's tight, it's hard to rotate a guy in there. And I will be every bit as loyal to Mason Garcia as I was to Holton Ahlers. It's Mason's opportunity now. Certainly Alex is going to compete with him this spring. Raheem is going to try to get a good handle on the playbook this spring. Obviously we need to add some more depth to that room. So, we're looking for who else we can bring in to compete in that room. But I could not be more excited for Mason Garcia's opportunity, and I feel that he will take the opportunity and he will run with it, and can't wait to watch that.
He's been, with the program now 3 years. Do you feel like he knows the offense at this point? It's just a matter of him seeing defenses and playing live bullets to really kind of, gauge where he is and see that growth?
Well, he knows the offense, and he has improved so much. Now, the one thing is, the offense this past year was tailored to Holton Ahlers, and it was tailored to his strengths, and it was tailored to, cover up any places that weren't a strength for him. Now you're going to do the same thing for Mason. So not that it's going to be a drastically different offense, but it will be a different offense, and you will ask things of Mason that you did not ask of Holton, and there are things that you ask of Holton that you will not ask of Mason. This I know. Mason is 6'5", 250. He can run, he has loose hips, and he has a cannon arm, and he is a driven competitor. And so there's lots of things you can do with an athlete like that. And so our offense will be tailored to fit Mason Garcia, Alex Flynn, Raheem Jeter, and then, if we add another quarterback, I would say we'll try to add somebody that's in that mold.
When you look at the running back position beyond Keaton Mitchell now, with Rajay coming off the knee injury, how tough is it maybe to, I don't know, obviously you guys expect him back at some point next season, but you almost have to, continue to build depth in that room, look for other guys to step up, which you guys have done. You'll add a grad transfer and Gerald Green from Georgia Southern, Marlon Gunn coming back. So do you feel good about the numbers in that room, the depth in that room?
I feel very good about that room. Rajay, he will be back and he will be fine. But the great thing about this spring is while he's continuing to rehab, you get, number one, an opportunity to continue to bring Marlon along. He played as a true freshman with no spring practice and preseason camp to get ready, and so I think he was exceptional. Especially considering when Rajay went down, all of a sudden he had a lot of weight put on his shoulders. I thought he had a great freshman year. Camaro Edmonds, I'm excited about getting him out there and getting to work with him and continue to develop him and really challenge him that he needs to step up and be a guy that we can depend on. Gerald Green, you mentioned just a minute ago. Gerald is a proven commodity at Georgia Southern. He brings experience. He brings just a tough physical runner that has really good top end speed. Really excited about Javius Bond, the mid-year true freshman, because he has a lot of the it factor that Keaton had. He's got that electric speed. He's put together. He is a dynamic athlete. So excited to have him this spring. So really those four guys right there are really going to be competing to see who is going to be the guy competing with Rajay for the starting job. Certainly Pop McKay and Nemo Squires are also in the room, along with C.J. Joyner and Grayson Klue. So those guys, they'll be challenged to listen. You've got to play at a high level if you're going to be in this room and you're going to be playing, with these guys. The one thing that I will say about all of them, they all have an opportunity. That's one thing everybody in this program has, is an opportunity. It is up to them to do something with that opportunity. So if you look up and a guy's, doesn't play or whatever, it's because he has not taken advantage of his opportunity. But they all get a fair shake.
And it seems that way at multiple positions where y'all have had guys that y'all have recruited that have been in the program, whether it be 1, 2, 3 years, that have developed, and y'all have maybe question marks, or so to speak, at certain positions with experience-proven guys moving on. But do you see this offseason as a chance for those guys to say, hey, you've been waiting your time, now show us why you deserve it?
Absolutely. And I don't care what position you're talking about. I think you got guys in every position room where you have an opportunity now. What are you going to do with that opportunity? And I, shared with one young man earlier today. I don't know how every other program in the country is run, but here's what I do know: around here, if you earn it, then you get it. So you want to play, go out there and earn it on the practice field. Earn it during workouts. The one thing is, everybody wants to play on game day, but you got to want to be driven to be the best day in and day out in order to earn that opportunity to play on game day. So they all get a chance. I don't care if they're a walk-on. We've had multiple walk-ons have been put on scholarship in the last 2 years here because they have earned it. And so, so it's one of those things where I don't care if you're a scholarship kid, a walk-on, a first-year kid, a fourth-year kid. Doesn't matter. Everybody has an opportunity.
We touched on CJ moving on, and obviously Isaiah Winstead has exhausted his eligibility, so 2 1,000-yard receivers done, and another position with opportunity. Y'all do add Ryan King from Georgia Tech as a transfer. First, what did y'all see that y'all liked about him? Another guy with good size, and then as you look at the rest of that room going forward, any guys you anticipate maybe taking a leap?
Well, I think Ryan has great size. He has long arms, very good ball skills, and then he is an explosive athlete that can really run. So, the tape that I've watched game tape, I've watched practice tape, I've watched all kinds of stuff, and he has some God-given ability that are going to give him an opportunity to really be a great receiver in this league. So excited to be adding him to that room. Excited to have Jalen Johnson back and healthy. Excited that Josiah Hatfield came on the way he did last year. I think Brock Spalding and Kerry King, 2 young guys, both showed a lot of potential and a lot of promise down the stretch. They were both really solid during bowl prep, and both of them made plays in the bowl game. Jarrett Gardner, really going to challenge him to take advantage of this opportunity, and to take advantage of this situation here. And then, we have 3 freshmen that we signed: Malik Levert, Nate Branch, and Zion Agnew. They'll be here this summer. You have some guys that I think have an opportunity in that room. Jari Patterson had a good bowl prep practice and was eligible to play for the bowl game. Josh Murphy coming back off of injury. He'll be back out there running around some this spring. You have some of those freshmen that'll get an opportunity. And then I do see us adding to that group in May. But the guys that are here this spring, they're going to get an opportunity to establish themselves, and really they're going to dictate, what else we look for in May with the available scholarships we have in that room.
Offensive line-wise, we haven't touched on the change with obviously Steve Shankweiler stepping away from coaching. Will remain with you guys in a support role, but Alan Mogrid, just had the chance to meet him on the way up here. I've heard nothing but great things about him. So before we dive into maybe the personnel, just how excited are you to bring Alan on?
Well, when Shank and I started talking about his desire to transition off the field, once that became something that was going to happen, I made one phone call, and I've known Alan for a long time. The situation worked out where he was looking as I was looking, and he's the one I wanted for that room, and he wanted to be here, so it worked out perfectly. So again, I've known him for a long time. I've watched what he's done at multiple schools up and down the East Coast. He has significant experience in this league, UCF, Temple, South Florida. He has experience in the ACC. He has done it at so many places at such a high level, and that was really, that's the comments I got, at the convention this past week. Is once it got out that he was our new offensive line coach, just people right and left, just really impressed with him, and just think that he's a great fit for us.
I know you guys probably want to add to the O-line room, at some point this offseason as well, with maybe a transfer or two, but a pretty solid group of still guys returning, even with some starters moving on. You have recruited that position pretty well, and some experienced starters returning. Just how content or happy are you with that room, and with some guys coming back specifically on the interior?
Well, I think there's a lot of room for excitement, or a lot of reason for excitement in that room with 4 solid guys that have played a lot of ball that are coming back. There's a lot of excitement in that room because of a really talented young group of linemen, some that are already here, some that will get here this spring. And then there is a need, so I think you are looking to add a couple of guys, older players to that room, because those young ones, although I'm excited and think they will be fine in time, some of them are maybe ready to play. They'll show that this spring. Some of them may not be quite ready yet. And it's offensive line is a position where you can't bring them along too fast. They really have to develop physically, especially in this conference. I think that the one thing that stood out to me in the bowl game was just, our lines were dominant. And that's because in this league, the fronts are big, they're physical, and it's week in and week out. You have got to have big physical players on your fronts in order to be able to compete.
I think Hampton Ergle might be one of the biggest centers I've ever seen. Watching him snap the ball to Holton. I heard that he was maybe placed on scholarship after the game. Is that true? And if so, what was that moment like?
Well, he was, and I had told Hampton, probably, the final third of the season, he and I had a conversation. I told him he would be on scholarship, moving forward, and so, I thought the bowl game ended the way I wanted it to. I wanted to, tell the other players in there after the game and celebrate with Hampton, because. And I told him in the locker room, I told our coaching staff this morning that if we win tonight, you will have played well. And I thought he played very well in the bowl game, first career start. And I'm telling you talk about a kid that really, he snapped throughout the year, but really he started playing centered late in the season. And then to go out and have a really solid performance in the bowl game, it really gives you confidence moving forward in him. And, he's a guy, hey, you talk about earning it. Nothing was given to him. He came here as a walk-on. He had multiple years on the scout team. Last year and this year traveled. And then, this year starting to play. Nobody gave that kid anything. He earned everything he got. Feel very good about him moving forward to next year, especially when you talk about putting him and Isaiah and Nashad, those 3 in there in the middle. I think Jacob Sacre is a guy that I really have high hopes for this spring. You are going to be really big and physical in the middle of your offensive line. Feel good about Parker Moore at tackle. I thought he had a really good performance in the bowl game and really has a lot of potential to be a really high-end player. You just got to figure out who our other tackle is.
When you look at defensively, I want to talk about some of the transfers you guys are bringing in before we wrap this thing up. And really like what y'all have done at linebacker, getting longer and more athletic there. Taekwon King coming in from A&T and B.J. Davis coming in from South Carolina State, along with Ra Dilworth from North Carolina. So those three guys, just if you could take us through kind of what you saw from them and what they could add to your defense.
Well, first, I'm excited about the players we have in the linebacker room. Taylor Jackson, I thought, played solid down the stretch and, really may have played as well as any linebacker in the bowl game. So excited about him. We have some really good young players, Zakai Barker, Jackson Barker. We signed two really high-end high school kids in DJ Johnson and Julian Davis. Jamari Young is here and with us in the program as a walk-on. So I'm really excited about those guys. The thing that stood out, though, is, as I go through that list, Taylor's the only older one. All the rest of them are really young. And so we felt like we had to add some experience to that room. And so adding Taekwon and BJ, who both were all-conference players at the FCS level, they're both older players. I think that really helps you as far as what you're going to put on the field next fall. I think Ra recruited him out of high school. He still has a lot of eligibility left, really high-end ability. And so he's a guy that I do expect to be an impact player. So now I think all of a sudden you've turned that room into one that is very solid for this upcoming year, but also it should be solid for the next 4 or 5 years with the youth and the quality youth in that room.
And looking at the secondary, you guys have also added some pieces there, and a lot of guys with opportunities now, with some corners moving on for different reasons. Also, Jair Wilson, entering the portal, and then Gerard Stringer graduating. So as you look at the secondary as a whole, we talked about opportunity earlier, and I think maybe outside of a couple guys returning who have kind of been stalwarts there, it'll be a fun off season.
Yeah, it will, and I think you have three very solid, proven starters in Julius Wood, Tegan Wilk, and Malik Fleming. So I think you're solid with those three right there. I think you have Siobhan Ravel, who, I'm telling you, I thought he played great in the bowl game. He really came on late in the year. I think he has an extremely high ceiling. So, you're excited about those guys right there. I'm excited about Isaiah Brown-Murray. I'm excited to get Tymier Brown added in that corner room. Fletcher Marshall, it's a big spring for him. Jamani Wilson, it's a big spring for him. So I think you got some guys that now have opportunity this spring to show that they deserve to be out there on the field with those other three guys. I think at the safety position, I'm excited to see what Kingston McKinstry and Brandon Higgs and Devin King are going to do. Ty Moss came on late in the year. You got Jordan Huff, who is recovering well from his really tough injury a year ago. So you have a lot of guys right there that are going to be competing this spring, along with the new guys you've added in. Dontavius Nash from North Carolina has a lot of eligibility left and has a very high ceiling. Omar Rogers, a little bit more of a proven commodity, a guy that's played at a high level, all-conference player from Elon and the CAA, which I have a lot of respect for that league. And so you have some guys that are, there to compete, older players. So I think that you're really solid. You just got to figure out who goes where. Who goes to the nickel safety, who's going to be your boundary safety, who's going to be that other corner, who's going to be the next guy. Ty Moss, is he ready to take that next step? I hope so. So I'm really excited about our secondary for the spring, just to see how everybody performs.
We go over all those names and all those opportunities. On the defensive front, y'all have a really established group coming back, and I guess if you're a coach, you want one area to be 100% solid. It's that defensive front. And you guys build it up. In the 2020 class, y'all brought in a ton of D linemen. Those guys have been in the program now. So can you at least sleep a little bit easier knowing all those guys are back up front?
There's no doubt. That's what are we looking for? Well, I'll tell you what we're not looking for. I love our defensive tackle room. I love the edge guys that we have. I've told Alan Mulgridge, I said, one thing I can promise you, when we get ready to go to inside run, you better have your guys ready to go, because that front right there, Coach Tesch's guys and Coach Dow's guys. They are big, they are strong, they are physical, and they have the attitude and the demeanor that we want to play with. So I love that group, all of them, and I think it's the strength of our defense. To a degree, it's the strength of our team, and I say that from a standpoint of just those guys, and I keep talking about them as a group because really they are a tight-knit group. Just the character and the core values of that group is what our program is about, and so I'm excited about them. The one thing I've got to be careful of now, they're all going to graduate about the same time, so we got to be, we still got a year or two left before we got to worry about that, but we better start preparing for it. But that is certainly something that helps us sleep at night.
Coach, next season you guys are scheduled to open at the Big House at Michigan.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. We'll have to make sure John Gilbert still wants to play that game after scheduling it years ago. But it's a big opportunity. I know quite a challenge, but I guess if there's a way to get ready for a season opener, you don't have to worry about that with your guys. I mean, they'll be ready, or they'll have plenty to look forward to heading into September.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you want opportunity, you got it. Okay. Not only is it playing in the Big House at Michigan, but they're back-to-back Big Ten champions in the college football playoff this year. So that's they really have that program at the highest point that it's been in decades, and so it's a great opportunity for us. And that's I can promise you this: none of our kids are going back down from it. So they'll be excited to go play, and we'll be excited for the opportunity. So a lot of work to do between now and then, but a great way to start the season.
Coach, we appreciate the time. We know it's precious this time of year. You guys as a staff, y'all work a lot of hours, especially now with the portal, recruiting. Spring ball will be here before you know it. We went about 45 minutes today, so we appreciate your time on the Hoist The Colours podcast, as always.
Well, just excited about Pirate football, and excited to be at East Carolina, and the fans that are passionate about us. A lot of them listen to this podcast, and so I just want to tell them that I'm thankful to be here, and I'm really excited about 2023 and can't wait to get started.
That is head coach Mike Houston. That'll do it for the Hoist The Colours podcast. We'll talk to you guys next time.